we're gonna do this class. I just hit record, so we'll start the class right now. Sarah, I know you had said, you had a deal recently that, just the process of going through the inspection, made you want to pull your hair out. You can put your own words to it, but like, tell me a little bit of what's going on in your experience recently with inspections.
So to be honest, this is just how I am about inspections. It's not even because of one particular circumstance.
Yeah.
I dread it, and just because of the typical stuff, and no matter how many times I tell myself it's always going to be like this and I need to be prepared, I just still stress that the seller never wants to fix anything. The buyer wants to always fix everything. It doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to matter how well I explain to them what we're looking for, big ticket items, that we're not looking at the minor things. They always find things, the buyers, that they want repaired, and I don't know, just the back and forth for whatever reason. Just part of my personality, I guess. I just hate all of that.
Right.
And that is the thing that one of the things that makes me want to quit my job.
Yeah, I hear you. I said pull your hair out. You said you went to the extreme. Yeah, I hear you. I've had some of the same thoughts, to be honest, Sarah. I said, why are we as salespeople required to negotiate mechanical and these things that we have nothing, some realtors don't even go to their inspections, right? And so it's just so I've had some of the same frustrations where it's just you're right, the sellers don't want to do a thing and they don't think they should have to, and the buyers want everything fixed, including everything from weather stripping that's partially torn to whatever small things the inspector finds. And some of the things you already mentioned, Sarah, is setting expectations. Absolutely. I know you're good at doing that, but just saying, every opportunity you get, when they ask about it, you say, one of the ways I explain it, we're really only going to ask for things that we didn't know about, the seller didn't know about and didn't tell us about, and it's kind of like a health and safety or a big ticket item, right? So I've had buyers, after they get their inspection done, say, hey, there's some drywall that needs to be repaired in this one bedroom. We want them to do that. And I'll say something like, well, you didn't need an inspector to find that out. So that should have been, that's a part of the condition of the home prior to making the offer. It was visible. You had access to it. We saw the property, and some of those condition things needed to be taken into account with regards to your offer. So that's not something that the sellers are going to be able to respond to. That's just the age of the home, and some of it's just dings. So if something is apparent, it's worth having that conversation up front. Hey, just so you know, I know that the carpet upstairs is horrible and it's in really bad shape. Obviously, we don't need an inspector to tell us that it's in bad shape. We need to negotiate that up front. Do you want to ask for a credit or whatever? So a lot of this stuff is out the window right now. Some of those examples are not good in today's market because nobody's asking for anything, right? So, but that is a way to kind of front load it. I know you're doing some of that stuff.
Right, and that's a good point. And to speak to that, I do that, and then they still come back with the very thing that we knew. It's happened to me several times where we know there's a problem, there's something we can see, or in the case of this most recent, we know the roof is old, so let's take that into account when we make our offer. And then when they find out that the roof is old, or something else in another home, they still want to ask for it. And I'm like, yeah, but we knew this. Well, and then their response is always, well, I still want to ask for a credit or whatever it is.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's just buyers' personalities or if there's anything else I can do. So it's probably just the thing that happens, but
I mean,
I don't
it's
know.
worth talking about though. And I don't, I'm not going to pretend like I can just solve it, like I could do it better for you. That's not what I think at all. I think you're probably doing a good job. I just think that there's always some things that you can add to help you out, and some of it's maybe just unavoidable, and we just got to suck it up. One of the things I will say that has helped me with in some of these areas, Sarah, is almost removing your own opinion from it, right? Is like, just lean on that inspection and blame the inspector, whether, when you're presenting it to the other agent. And oh, here's another thing that I've used in the past. Okay. So your buyer does an inspection, it's a 70-page report, and they want to ask for 12 things, right? Weather stripping and light bulbs and all these other things. Like there's like 11 things. And one of the things that's worked in the past for me is I'll say, we've gotten this far. There's 11 things that you want. I know, there's 4 things you're willing to ignore, but there's 11 things that you want. And my experience is that if you give the seller that many things, that they're just going to be overwhelmed. They won't even read all the way through them all. They're just going to get angry. And so what in order to get what you want done, and instead of, what we're going to do is we're going to activate this resistance response from the seller. And they're going to say, you know what, they either want the house or they don't. I'm not doing anything. They can make a decision, or we can go to the next buyer. That's what happens when they get overwhelmed. They want to run away from it, right? They want to run away from the stress, the decisions. Now they've got to talk to, all they see is 11 different contractors they have to have come in their home and all this stuff. Pick the 2 or 3 or 4 things at the very most that are really important to you. And I'll even say this to them. I'll say, you know what, if they say no to that weather stripping, are you still going to buy the house? Well, yeah, of course we are. Okay. So that we don't really have any negotiation on say, any leverage on the weather stripping, do we? Right? Because you're still going to buy the house, and everybody knows it, that you're not going to cancel the property, over something like that. Now, if that torn piece of weather stripping was causing flooding in the lanai, and that was, causing the grout to get dirty, and it was leading to this larger problem, well, let's put that out there and say, hey, this is why this is important. It looks small, but hey, it's staining the grout in the lanai. It's causing when it rains really hard and all this stuff. So we would like that repaired. But other than that, now where was I? I had a point. 3 or 4 things that are the most important to them.
Right. I think that's good advice.
And then, Sarah, I don't know if you do this. Do you use FBI home inspections?
No.
No? Okay. So the other thing I would do is just make sure when you send your requests, 2 or 3 or 4 things, you splice out the pages, the only pages that pertain to what you're asking for. Okay.
Right.
So
I do that.
And then when you DocuSign, when you DigiSign your request from your buyer, put your addendum first, then take the 3 or 4 pages that pertain to that and put it in with it. So it's all one document. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So the seller, again, you're removing almost yourself, and you're helping the listing agent by just putting the inspector's information directly in front of the seller. And some sellers are going to be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea my shingles were curled, or that there were 5 shingles missing up on the roof. I had no idea. If I would have known that, I wouldn't buy a house with 5 missing shingles. But if we just give them everything, and we give them 10, 11 things, and we give them a 70-page report, all we're doing is throwing an overwhelming amount of information on top of them and asking them to respond to that, right? In a super stressful, situation. So
Right.
paring this down to 3 or 4 pages with a few simple requests can go a long way. And you make it, everything you do, right, you have to make it good for your buyer, right? I don't want to create this resistance with the seller. I understand those are things you would want done. I can help you. I don't do this, but I mean, you can always help them find a handyman. We can get this stuff done for like $200 before you move in. So yeah, just presenting just less information, I would say. And then you can send that document along with the full inspection report if you want to. Sometimes I do that. I'll do the addendum, the pages that pertain in one doc, in one PDF, and then the full inspection report, and just send it that way. And then you've kind of removed yourself and you've pared it down. And I mean, instead of interpreting and instead of being an expert on all these home inspection things, you're just moving information, and your job, Sarah, becomes just paring down the information from a lot to just like what's necessary, and presenting it in a way that common folks that don't look at inspection reports every day, so anybody could read it and digest it and not be overwhelmed by it, so they can have like a real discussion amongst themselves and with the realtor on how to problem solve this, because what we're asking for is actually pretty reasonable. So how's that?
Good point.
Is that okay advice?
Yeah, good points. And a lot of what you're saying is stuff that I do. So maybe it's just a little bit for me of saying, yes, this is how people do it. And I don't know, maybe just a little bit of confidence there in that I am doing it the best way.
Yeah.
Is helpful. Because there was a time when I was able to coach the buyer to only ask for those main things and to take out some that weren't as important. And then it was successful where the seller said, okay, I will do those items. Right. And we didn't have to do the back and forth. But then I was like, always just in my mind, well, what if we had asked for more because they agreed to everything? Just having those kind of thoughts too.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And it's just having confidence. Any right. time I get in that situation, a lot of times it's with buyers, right? So the buyer puts their offer in and it gets accepted like that, right? Or something like that. Or during inspections, hey, they took all 4 of our requests. Well, why didn't we should have asked for 8 things? And then if that ever comes up, either, now I know this is just in your mind, but sometimes it comes up with the buyer. And I say, no. If we would have asked for all 8 things, George, they would have rejected it, and we would have ended up with 1 or 2 things after they were done being mad. Okay. We asked for 4 things, which were reasonable, and we got all 4 accepted. Good job. I just said, good job. We did a great job. Stop.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah. And I think that's true, but I guess there's just that voice of doubt.
And this is, I just like to say, in my experience, when I've done this in the past, what I've found, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm trying to give you advice, and I'm trying to use my experience. Don't ask for 6 things. What's the nicest way to say that? In my experience, when I've had buyers ask for a lot of things, a lot of times the sellers get overwhelmed by the amount of information, and they start to reject it. And they just have, and just finding a way to present that. If we get this down to 2 or 3 things, and I'll go through them. I'll be like, okay, would you really need this done? Would you really need, whatever it is, simple things. So, yeah, I hear you though. Sometimes I not recently, but in the past, I have felt similar, where I'm just like, it just creates these obstacles. Buyers feel like they should ask for the world because they just spent all this money on inspections. Oh, here's the other thing with regards to inspections, right? Set it up as an informational document that they are investing in their future home, right? This report is not to give you all the leverage in the world so that you can get thousands of dollars back on your purchase. A lot of the information in an inspection report is informational to the homeowner, the future homeowner. It's, you know, how to maintain your AC unit, where your water shutoff is, you know, just different ages and serial numbers and all that stuff. So this report, you know, if you ask for nothing from the seller, this is still very well spent money from you, $500 or $600, because you'll have this document. You can refer back to it on yearly maintenance and things you may want to keep an eye on. This is a good report to review once in a while and keep an eye on. So you know, there's just these little things that we can do to set up success so that if the buyer is thinking, I'm spending $500 so I can go get $3,000 out of the seller. Like, let's get ahead of that and make sure that they know they're doing this for them, and the report has longevity. It's not for a single negotiation. It is for the life of when they own that property. So
Yeah, good point.
all right. So your next idea was to have another realtor negotiate your inspections for you. And I know that was just an idea, but go ahead.
Right. No, I really was, because you know how often we hear about how we should, like, I don't know if outsource is the right word, but like find people to do the things to make our life easier. And I like, you think I am being a little dramatic, but I really do get to that place where I just don't want to do it anymore.
Right.
And I thought, no, I'm like totally bringing an agent, the entire transaction. They are my inspection specialists and they 100% do the whole thing.
Right. And I mean, that I don't have any experience with that role, Sarah. I mean, I'm sure it's possible. I think you have to bring them in early, right? You have to, hey, our my inspection negotiator, whatever you want to call that role, hey, they're going to view the property, they're going to attend the inspection for me, and they are much better than I am about interpreting these reports, and they're going to be in charge of taking you through that and working with the other agent on a great outcome. So I wouldn't give that up myself. I think it's too important to the relationship, and I don't trust anybody else to do that for me. But I can see it. I mean, under the right relationships, sure. I mean, what if an inspection company offered a licensed realtor to do this portion for you?
Yeah, 100%.
Are we missing a business opportunity, Sarah?
I think we are, at least for me. Yes, I would 100% take advantage
Sarah
of
would
that.
pay. Sarah would pay, whatever, to have another realtor attend her inspection, review the report with her clients, and take it all the way till it was fully negotiated, and that would be of value for Sarah. So
right, and like you said, how we are not like the experts in that area, so that really, I think this is a great opportunity for someone to start a business.
I know. I just think, I think it's a good idea. I'd be interested to see the execution. I just think, I always think it's so hard to hand off anything. I mean, even there are times when Nick is probably the one I've worked with the most as far as handing my clients and saying, hey, would you show them this house? And for the most part, it's worked out pretty well. And I will say, between husband and wife, it's easy. It's probably the easiest thing for Jenna to initiate. And this was, when we had a little bit less experience, she would initiate a relationship and then just say, hey, Doug's going to be at your house tonight to go over the listing appointment. And that's the easiest thing. I think it's harder when it's like they contact Doug and Jenna and then, hey, so-and-so is going to do XYZ for you. You know, it's not impossible, but it's something I might have a little mental hurdle with because there's a lot of expectation. But if you get one guy and one person that would do that for you, you know, and you have to make it a benefit to the buyer. And you say, you know, Joe over here is not Joe, but like anybody, he's a former inspector. He's also a licensed realtor. He gets to see, you know, 200 inspections a year. And he's just going to be a better fit for interpreting the report and helping you through the negotiations. It's good for the buyer.
It doesn't matter how good of somebody you have to negotiate on your behalf. If the seller's agent can't regurgitate what you're trying to say to them and give that to their sellers, you're still at an impasse. Because that was the biggest issue I think I had in my last deal.
Yeah.
Because part of our negotiation to get under contract was I set clear expectations to my buyers that we're really only going after like health and safety and like things like you guys were just talking about. And then we get the inspection and this guy comes back with a laundry list of stuff, like the house painted. He wants the pool resurfaced. He wants the fence done. He wants one other thing with the pool. And when we were talking about that, I was like, where is this coming from? He's like, well, I'm not going to pay above value for things that are broken. I was like, a house being painted and like the pool resurfacing, we saw that. And I was like, this is probably going to have to be redone. And he just wasn't budging. And then
which deal was this, Nick? I can't remember.
This
Which
was
one?
on Kyle Court. And
It was what?
It was on Kyle Court in Valrico.
Okay.
So we offered $10,000 above appraisal.
Right.
And won the contract. And we beat out a cash buyer with that because I was talking, and I built a pretty good rapport with the agent. And we were going back and forth, and we finally got it under contract. And this is the guy that had to be at the inspection. And he went and got his own guy because my dude couldn't show up till the next day. And he went and got one that he used. And this guy was following him around like a dog.
Yeah.
Okay, well, how much is this? Is this going to be $500, $100, $1,000? And this inspector, like, I'm sounding a bit brash, but this guy sounded like a fucking idiot when he was trying to explain stuff.
Yeah.
I have a pretty good construction background, and I can tell when things are out of place. And he's like, oh, this guy didn't use the proper paint on the wood, so that's going to start rotting in the next 30
Just creating problems. Yeah. And good inspectors know how to create problems and also protect, you know, your mutual client. They know how to do both, and they know how to explain things, like, you know.
And then we finally got it down, and then the fence came back. And I was like, Mr. Nagel, like, come on. You want to redo the entire fence when they're in the middle, so they have two people and someone in the back. And I was like, how are we going to go to a buyer or a seller and be like, I want the entire fence replaced, which his quote was like $9,000.
Right.
And it's like, when we were talking about this, we saw the fence had some issues. And the best way to go about it is when you're going to replace it, talk to the neighbors, be like, if you split the materials with me, I'll pay to have it done or something like that. And he was like, oh, yeah. And I was like, okay. Then he sends me the bill because he had some guy come look at it. And it was like $9,000. And he sent me over 2 different invoices, and I sent those to the agent, and I didn't look clear enough at it. And then the listing agent calls me back, and he's like, what is up with this fence? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, it's like $9,000. I was like, yeah, I know the materials. He's like, they have this elaborate like PVC gate thing attached to it. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And I called him back, and like it started getting a little heated between the buyer. And he's like, I don't care what they think. This is broken. They can't expect somebody to move into the house like that and have us pay above value.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah.
I
know you did a good job. You know, I would just say, like, this is how the seller lived with this property. They're not going to buy you a brand new fence when they could have bought themselves a brand new fence last year and had the, like, you know, This is just how they live. Like we have to be asking for things that they didn't disclose and they didn't know about, right? And things that are, so yeah, the fence for me, hey, it'd be great if the buyer would buy you a new fence, or if the seller would. I would love that for you. I wouldn't expect it.
Yeah. So the only thing that saved this deal is we were able to get the floor of what the minimum they were going to take. And so instead of offering, so we knew the minimum they would take was 310,000. We offered 10,000 above, so it would have been 320. So the way we restructured the deal and have them not pay anything for like concessions or fix anything is we would pay whatever it appraised for, no matter what the number was. And the only thing that they kicked back is it had to be at least 310,000. So that was the hardest part, was explaining that to the listing agents, like, hey, you're getting exactly the minimum of what they were going to accept in the previous deal. So I don't understand why that's a big hiccup. And
where'd the appraisal come in?
312.5.
Oh, good.
Yeah, because they were.
And so with the overappraised, what was your other contract price?
We were going to go all the way up to 360.
360, yeah.
Yeah. And that's when I knew it was going to be an issue, because this agent wasn't understanding what an appraisal contingency was. Because he's like, why does it say up to 360? I was like, our buyers are willing to pay all the way up to 360, 10,000 above X. And he's like, well, what if they just brought it down to like 330? Like, what do you mean bring it down to 330? And anywho, but
I'm sorry, I gotta use the bathroom.
it's okay.
I didn't do that before I jumped on the call. Have fun. I'll be right back.
So Nick, what are you working on now?
I have a few buyers, but one's FHA and a few are out of state. So it's just going and getting the virtual tours and whatnot. But the FHA, like, I think we've seen like 5 or 6 properties and wrote offers on 2, and they don't have a bunch of cash to be able to go above appraisal value. And FHA is not getting accepted very much, especially in the 250 to 230, 300 price range.
Right. Yeah, I have a buyer like that. He's conventional, but same difference. Like, he doesn't have extra cash to bring. So we're just offering list price. We've done 3 offers, I think, over the past week or 2, and we don't get accepted. And it's almost like he and I both know going into it, it's not going to get accepted because there's multiple offers, and so it's just tough.
Why can't I just call the listing agent and be like, do you have any cash offers? And then the biggest thing is, do you have anybody that's waiving the appraisal contingency? And once they tell me yes, then I kind of just explain that to the buyers, and they're at the point where they kind of understand that now. It's just hard to keep them from getting too disgruntled and putting it on hold. Because I had one buyer, she was only in like the $145,000, $150,000 range, and like everything was like a complete dump, or something was nice, remodeled and small, but those were still getting cash offers and above appraisal still anyways. And she was like completely shut down, and I just reached out to her again today, so hopefully I hear back.
Nick, do you want to be Sarah's inspection negotiator?
Well, they do. They don't call me Harvey Specter for no reason.
What do they call you?
Have you guys watched the TV show Suits?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Harvey Specter. I'm the negotiator.
Oh,
There you
okay.
go.
Harvey Specter. Oh, okay. I got it. I didn't hear it correctly. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good show. Meghan Merkel, the
Right.
whatever, her Duchess of Oprah. I have no idea. Cool. So All right. Well, I hope that was helpful, Sarah, a little bit. It's not a fun part of our job. Um, who's your inspector that you use?
Well, I usually use Waypoint. I don't use anyone. I let them pick.
Yeah.
But Waypoint tends to be because I not recommend them. It's one of the inspectors that I give when I give them a couple of different options. I haven't,
Yeah.
like personality wise, FBI has, there's a clash there between them and me. So
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. I hear you.
I don't really use them very often. I don't really, I think they are one of the people I put on my list because I know a lot of people like them. So I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
I like the technology that they give you.
Yes, their technology is pretty good. It is pretty good. But we kind of, I kind of went away from them recently just because they couldn't accommodate these 5-day inspection windows that we were writing. So we found somebody else. I think they've been pretty good, right? That Paul guy.
Yeah, I like him other than he left me hanging one day.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
But
they've been pretty good, and
they're very fast.
yeah, they didn't even charge. I encouraged the owner to charge my client who canceled the day of an inspection, and he wouldn't do it. The day of, hours before, I had to call him and say, hey, we're canceling the contract. We don't need an inspection. I was like, you should charge him. I already told him he was going to get charged because they couldn't book another appointment in the slot and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, nope, I won't do it. I won't do it. I'm like, are you sure? So a good guy. Seems like a good guy. We can forward that over. So
yeah. And then Doug, when you put your inspection request to the seller, do you put that on a blank addendum?
yeah, a lot of times I will. I know we have an ICR that's in Facebook. You can use that one as well. So I think the ICR, it just depends. You can do either way, but the ICR says it must be a licensed blah, blah, blah. And sometimes the things I send over, I don't really care if the seller does it handyman style. If it is something that needs it, I'll put that in the addendum.
Right.
But for the most part, I do use just blank addendums. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. So.
Yep.
What else is going on? Any things we can see with the market? I mean, I'm working with a 500 to 600K buyer. He's put offers in Newport Richey. Where's his other one? Tampa Palms, somewhere else. And it just seems like he just keeps getting beat out by cash. It doesn't seem to matter. Mm-hmm. We've done the uncapped escalation clause. We're going $20,000 over appraised. 5-day inspection period. And, it's like every weekend we'll put an offer that's very similar to that in. And the uncapped escalation clause, like we've talked about in the past, the only reason for that strategy is just to get a phone call. That's it. That's all I'm looking for, is when they're reviewing offers with the sellers, that they call me and they say, hey, we have all these offers. Yours is a good offer, but we don't know. Here's the price it would be if we were to take your offer. Now, okay, let me call my client, see where we're at. And just so I can get into a conversation. Now, that strategy hasn't worked the last 2 that I've written for this buyer. We get no phone call. We get an email a few hours after the deadline. And they say, thank you. We had a lot of great offers. It was overwhelming. And we took a cash offer. That's essentially what it says. So we don't even get in the conversation. So yeah, that's about what I can see right now. So, Nick, this is interesting. Remember that property we saw in Deep Maple?
Yeah.
It's in I think it's called the Oaks, Taylor Morrison community in Riverview kind of area.
I remember it.
So we saw it probably in February is my guess. Me and Nick went over there. So it's tenant occupied. The seller's out of state. Went in, walked through, great military family renting it. what was our numbers at that point? We thought it might be worth like 330 to 340, right?
Yeah. I think it's
Okay.
350 is what you were planning on.
Right. So then my higher number, once, you know, and the market started going crazy, I'm like, okay, I think it's probably 350, right? So, and I when you were looking for your client, I said, hey, maybe we could get this for 350 if we had our own buyer, right? Instead of pushing it all the way up the market, you know, 350 was going to be the number. So I emailed with the seller yesterday. I'm putting the listing agreement together, and my fairly conservative number was 385. So instead of just sandbagging it at 350 or whatever, I said, hey, why don't we go in at 385? I didn't think he'd say much about it. Well, he's like wanting to squeeze it. And so now I had to dig deeper into the comps, and I'm like, okay, if you put vinyl plank flooring in and you do this and that, you redo your carpet and you paint the house, okay, we could take a shot at 400. The data's there where we could get pretty close to 400, or, you know, so it's just crazy, you know, in probably in 2 months. What's that?
I didn't realize. I thought he didn't want to have to do a lot. He just wanted to get it cleaned and then sell it.
You know, I didn't know either, because it seemed like, I mean, when I first started talking to him last winter, the first time I looked at it and I was on the phone with him, I'm like, oh, you know, you probably get over 300, 325. And he was like blown away. And he was like, oh my gosh, that would be great. It would put so much money in his pocket. So then I thought, well, 350, he's going to be ecstatic about that, especially if we can find our own buyer and he doesn't have to do anything. Now he's looking at it and saying, well, if I could really get the 380, 390, 400, you know, he may be willing to put some money into it. So, you know.
What are you seeing on your appraisals? Are they mostly appraising pretty close to list price, or are they, like, if you have a buyer that's paying over, is the appraisal somewhere in there?
Yeah. Trying to think. That Brandon house on Hollyberry, for 300K, that appraised. My Lake Michaela house in Twin Lakes, we used an appraisal gap to go 25,000 over, so that came in short. This one in Wesley Chapel just came in short. And then I'm waiting for another one.
I'm asking because this buyer I was telling Nick about, he's at like a 300 price point. And he doesn't have any extra. In fact, he really wants closing costs or money towards closing. So that was a new thing he said yesterday. But so we've just been offering list price because I don't want to go through it all, and he pays for inspection, appraisal, and then we wind up. So I've been telling him, like, let's just stick with list price unless there was some reason I saw that it was obvious the value is way under. I'm like, but we just offer a list. I feel like that's our best bet at no appraisal issues. I mean, obviously, right? But I ask because I've heard some people say the appraisals aren't keeping up. So but I wonder.
I think it's circumstantial. I think it depends. I mean,
right.
Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't, right?
Right.
You know, my Wesley Chapel property, the data is not there. There isn't enough of it. It's bad. It's bad timing. It's bad things. I think it would appraise next fall because it'll have this different data set. But and then like in Valrico, in Twin Lakes, you know, we used an appraisal gap, you know, to close at 551, a 3,000 square foot house. Well, now Ken and Karen Chastain both put properties on the market similar in square footage, and they went up to 587 and 599. And those homes, I can't say, are much better than mine. So absolutely, my closed price is going to help them. Now, will it get them that far? And I don't know. I'm not sure. Or it's kind of a question of, will your appraiser go outside your neighborhood? Because it's super easy to interpret what's in the neighborhood. I mean, you can almost get to like a very, it doesn't take a lot of interpretation if you just look at similar homes in my neighborhood, for instance, in Twin Lakes. Now, in order to appraise 599 and 587 on Mossy Timber in Twin Lakes, they're going to have to use River Hills comps or other local Valrico comps that are not in Twin Lakes. They're going to have to in order to get there, to get to the square footage. So it just depends on the appraiser. So,
but most of them seem to be at list price still, like is what it sounds like.
Yes, and sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we don't know because
you have the seller. Or
well, sometimes we don't know on the outside because if just like other properties, because they'll just close with these appraisal contingencies as well. So
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. It's hard. It's just hard. Anyway, you just you can't remove all the risk. You can't, settle all these things early. And
yeah.
I just think it's so interesting. I don't know. I tried to make this point last week, and I don't know if it came across. I just feel like the skill set has just totally flipped in this industry. And, I'm talking to you, Sarah, because you've been in it for years like I have. The skill set used to be go into the house, sit at the dining room table, and get them to work with you. That was the ultimate skill set. And I think now it's writing buyer offers. Like getting your buyer under contract is the skill set. Like that's it, and you should celebrate every time you get a buyer under contract. You absolutely should. Like it's crazy, and this is recorded and I don't know if I was talking to Adriana, she's talking about how busy she was, and she went through kind of her what am I looking for? Anyway, she went through like her pipeline. That was the word. She went through her pipeline. They were all buyers. They're all buyers, and she's very excited, as she should be. Her career is going well, and it's going in the direction she wants to. I'm glad she's excited. I have no idea if the 6 or 7 buyers that she has in her pipeline right now, if they're going to close before September, October, November last year. I have no idea. So everything is kind of like a grain of salt. I know, hey, we're busy. I got people that are interacting with me. I'm showing them property. I'm problem solving. I'm making phone calls. Great. You got to get them under contract. You got to get them closed, so.
Right. The ones I have under contract are under contract 10,000 under list price. And I had, at the time, didn't appreciate how amazing that was until now that I have other buyers.
How'd you pull that off? How'd you pull that off?
My amazing skill set.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I know they're willing to pay you cash and more money, but I'm Sarah.
Right. That's the technique.
Make it worth it. All right. I should get going. Good talking to you guys. I'm glad we're able to catch up. I would like to get more people on this. I think this is good content. I think this is absolutely, I think this is better than a 3-person discussion. I really believe that. So I don't know if the time's different or I would like to do this class live at least a couple times a month. So I think it's good that we get together. However the format came from the mentorship, right? So the mentorship kind of dried up / people are graduating and moving on to their careers, but I think they still want discussion like this. So we'll keep doing it. So, okay.
All right. Bye guys.
All right. Good to see everybody. Later.